Eleanor stood backstage, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. She inhaled deeply, focusing on the dim glow of the exit sign in the distance. Beneath the soft hum of the auditorium lights, her reflection shimmered in the glass of the mirrored wall. Tonight was the culmination of years of work, years spent honing her English-speaking skills, memorizing advanced idioms, mastering complex sentence structures, and perfecting her pronunciation. But in this moment, she felt anything but prepared. Her mind raced with doubts. Would her vocal projection hold? Would her carefully chosen words resonate? Would her accent betray her? She closed her eyes and recalled the countless nights she had practiced in her small apartment. She had recited tongue twisters to refine her enunciation. She sells seashells by the seashore. She had recorded her voice, listening back to identify fluctuations in pitch and tone, striving for that perfect balance of clarity and emotion. She had studied intonation patterns, learning how to rise and fall like a skilled orator, using pauses to emphasize key points. All of these techniques had been effective when no one was watching, but now, under the glare of the stage lights, with a live audience poised to judge, her confidence felt fragile. A faint whisper of movement drifted through the curtains. The host was preparing to introduce her. She could almost hear the echo of applause, the polite rustle of programs, the collective breath of an audience waiting in anticipation. Eleanor's throat tightened, but she fixed her gaze on a single point on the curtain, an imaginary beacon, and began to recite a phrase she had drilled into her muscle memory. "My name is Eleanor Patel, and I stand before you tonight to share not just my story, but the essence of how language can transform a life." This opening line felt like a lifeline, anchoring her to the moment. She stepped onto the stage, the bright lights momentarily blinding her. For a heartbeat, she froze as though suspended in time. Then she reminded herself of a critical speaking strategy, the power of a slow, deliberate start. She would anchor herself with a well-practiced nod, breathe, and begin again. Her voice emerged, steady but warm, drawing the audience into her world. "Language," she said, "is more than a tool. It is a vessel that delivers our thoughts, our passions, our vulnerabilities." She paused, an intentional, lingering pause, letting the word vulnerabilities resonate. She had learned that advanced speaking wasn't merely about impressive vocabulary. It was about using pauses and pacing to convey depth. She felt the tension ease slightly. The auditorium was silent, hanging on to her every syllable. Eleanor embarked on her narrative, weaving in advanced idiomatic expressions to elevate her storytelling. She described the crossroads she faced a year ago when she applied for the prestigious International Speakers Neuhaus Award. "It was a make-or-break moment," she explained, eyebrows knitting together as though replaying the memory. "I knew I would have to bite the bullet and step outside my comfort zone, or I risked letting my opportunities slip through my fingers." She recounted the first time she encountered a native English speaker who challenged her pronunciation. "He told me, 'Your accent's getting in the way of your message.' At first, I was devastated." Her voice softened, laden with emotion. She used that phrasing, "laden with emotion," to remind herself to employ descriptive modifiers that captivate an audience. She described how she had painstakingly enrolled in advanced accent reduction classes, where she was introduced to the International Phonetic Alphabet, IPA. "Even now, I can trace the curve of my tongue as I pronounce the phoneme, ensuring the sound emerges crisply." She demonstrated, enunciating thin and then inviting the audience to hear the subtle difference. Mastering those nuances was like unlocking a hidden door to fluency. Her pronunciation was precise, but she integrated an emotional cadence that kept listeners invested. As Eleanor continued, the story took a suspenseful turn. She revealed that during the final round of the competition, she had received a cryptic note backstage. The note read, "Be careful who you trust. Some people don't want you to succeed." Her eyes widened as she unfolded the paper, her pulse quickening. She paused again, a strategic pause, to allow the audience to grasp the gravity of her sentence. She employed a subordinate clause to heighten tension. Although I was flustered, I forced myself to continue forward, knowing that succumbing to panic would only validate my worst fears. Her narrative was a masterclass in rhetorical devices. She used anaphora, repeating the phrase, "I stood," to emphasize her resilience. I stood against the judge's raised eyebrows. I stood against the murmurs in the crowd. I stood against the creeping doubt that threatened to undermine me. Each repetition built momentum, drawing listeners deeper into her internal conflict. She described the echo of her footsteps in the backstage corridor as she searched for the author of the note. She narrated her mounting suspicion. Was it one of the other contestants, jealous of my progress? Or someone on the judging panel, threatened by my potential? She used rhetorical questions to involve the audience, compelling them to weigh possibilities alongside her. With every word, Eleanor demonstrated advanced vocabulary. She chose meticulous instead of careful, ubiquitous instead of everywhere, and ephemeral instead of short-lived. But she balanced these with explanatory context, ensuring comprehension. For instance, when she said ephemeral, she quickly added fleeting, like the last rays of sunset. This demonstrated her grasp of using complex words while ensuring clarity for listeners. As the story reached its climax, Eleanor described how she confronted a fellow contestant, Jonah Reyes, a charismatic but enigmatic speaker who had always edged her out in preliminary rounds. She painted a vivid picture. His smile was the epitome of congeniality, but his eyes glinted with something unreadable. Presenting dialogue, she mimicked his smooth tone. "You've worked hard, Eleanor. But remember, success can turn allies into adversaries." His words dripped with insinuation. She paused before responding, choosing her words carefully to show how to craft a powerful comeback. Eleanor recounted her retort. "Language is the conduit of truth, Jonah. If you're afraid of it, then perhaps it is fear of your own inadequacies." She delivered the phrase deliberately, allowing the consonants to be crisp and the vowels to resonate. She highlighted this moment as an example of using a concluding dependent clause to reinforce her point. She explained, in narrative, that finishing with inadequacies underscored his fear. The tension escalated further when she returned to the stage, only to find that the microphone was sabotaged. A subtle but crucial piece of technology was malfunctioning. The audio feedback crackled, distorting her practiced presentation. The audience shifted uncomfortably as the sound wavered. Eleanor felt a knot tighten in her throat, a familiar foe, stage fright. Yet she recalled another advanced speaking strategy, projection. She took a breath, braced herself, and spoke, carefully modulating her volume to override the crackle. Her voice boomed, unfazed by the disturbance. In that moment, Eleanor's vulnerability became her strength. She dropped to a whisper for dramatic contrast, saying, "Even in darkness, the truth can pierce shadows." The audience leaned in, captivated by the shift. She then raised her voice to a crescendo, and in that truth lies the power to transform. She demonstrated the principle of dynamic range, varying volume and tone to keep listeners engaged. As the microphone stabilized, She continued her speech. She shifted to second-person address to create intimacy. Imagine standing here, feeling the weight of expectation pressing on your shoulders. You can feel your pulse in your throat, your mind racing. But remember, each word you speak is a declaration of your identity. Her use of direct address, you established rapport with the audience, making them co-creators of her journey. With each shared technique, Eleanor didn't just teach, she embodied advanced speaking. She contrasted simple sentences with compound complex structures, showing how to vary sentence length for style and emphasis. She inserted asides, set off by dashes. Most people, among them, even seasoned orators, overlook the power of a well-timed pause. She employed parenthetical statements. Remember, clarity trumps complexity. Her punctuation choices underscored rhythm, guiding listeners through a symphony of words. Emotion surged as Eleanor revealed her darkest doubt. During her final rehearsal, her mentor, Professor Harrow, had fallen ill. She described the hollow ache in her chest when she heard the news. He was the architect of my confidence, the compass that guided my narrative. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. Her voice quivered ever so slightly, a testament to the authenticity of her emotion. She used sensory details, the sterile smell of the hospital corridor, the fluorescent lights humming overhead, the metallic taste of worry in her mouth. Despite the anguish, she disclosed how Professor Harrow had whispered to her, "Your voice matters, Eleanor. Speak and let the world listen." His words, though faint, had rekindled her resolve. She shared this anecdote to illustrate the use of a quoted subordinate clause to convey pivotal information.
As Eleanor drew closer to the conclusion of her speech, the suspense peaked. She revealed that the cryptic note had resurfaced, this time pinned to her podium just moments before she began speaking. It read, "Tonight, one of us will falter. Which one will it be?" She had discovered it in the throes of her
introduction, her blood running cold. She narrated how her fingers trembled as she deliberately didn't let her audience see her read it. Instead, she pretended to adjust the microphone, using a subtle, unbroken intent technique to conceal her reaction. She demonstrated how to maintain composure by shifting focus from internal turmoil to external engagement. She shared how she turned that moment into a demonstration of extemporaneous speaking. The judges expected her to follow a rigid script, but she abandoned it and spoke from the heart. She explained the technique of organizing thoughts in parallel structure on the fly. First, acknowledge the challenge. Second, express gratitude. Third, deliver the core message. Even while under duress, she orchestrated her words into a coherent, triadic pattern, showcasing advanced cognitive linguistic agility. Eleanor described the surreal sensation of finishing her speech to thunderous applause, not knowing whether she had triumphed over her saboteur or simply over herself. She had walked off stage with legs that felt like jelly, but a burning exhilaration surged through her veins. The curtain fell, and she collapsed into a chair, tears of relief streaming down her cheeks. As she sat, the host announced the winner. Before her name could echo through the hall, a silhouette emerged from the shadows, a janitor, humble and unassuming, carrying a clipboard. "Miss Patel," he said softly, "your professor asked me to give this to you." He handed her an envelope. Eleanor's hand shook as she opened it. Inside was a note penned in Professor Harrow's familiar scrawl. "Congratulations, Eleanor. I couldn't be prouder. Remember, adversity is the crucible that tempers greatness." She looked up, scanning the stage. Jonah Reyes was standing off to the side, applause fading like a dying ember. His expression was inscrutable, neither triumphant nor defeated. In that moment, Eleanor realized the truth. The real competition was within herself. She clutched the note to her heart, her voice catching as she whispered, "I did it." The auditorium erupted once more as her name was called for the award. She walked forward, head held high, each step intentional, her spine straight, a physical manifestation of her inner metamorphosis. When she reached the podium again, she took the microphone and addressed the audience in a hushed tone. "Tonight, I learned that true eloquence is not merely about flawless pronunciation or sophisticated vocabulary. It is about the courage to speak your truth, even when the world conspires against you." She concluded with a flourish, delivering a final rhetorical question. "So I ask you, when the moment of doubt arrives, will you let silence define you, or will you let your voice become your legacy?" The audience rose to their feet, and Eleanor allowed herself to be enveloped in the standing ovation, her chest swelling with a profound sense of accomplishment. Later, as she packed her notes backstage, Professor Harrow appeared, leaning against the doorway with a gentle smile. Though frail, his eyes shone with pride. "You were magnificent," he whispered. Eleanor knelt before him, taking his hand. "I couldn't have done this without you," she said. He shook his head, tears glinting in his eyes. "No, my dear, you did this. I merely reminded you that your voice was worth hearing." Eleanor paused at the curb, her reflection shimmering in a passing taxi's window. The cool breeze whispered reassurances, as if the night itself were congratulating her. She clutched the envelope's crisp paper in her right hand, turning it over slowly to feel Professor Harrow's signature. Each letter pulsed with its own energy, a reminder of how language could transmute words into an enduring legacy. She recalled her childhood in Mumbai, where English was both a privilege and a barrier. Her parents had emigrated when she was 5, seeking opportunities in a foreign land teeming with promise and pitfalls. Young Eleanor had often felt like an imposter in her own academic circles, struggling to decipher idioms her classmates tossed around casually. Her earliest memories involved her mother teaching her phrases like "break a leg," and Eleanor had taken them literally, worrying each time she heard it. Those early struggles had sparked a fascination with language. She devoured Dickens and Hawthorne, annotating margins to dissect syntax and analyze metaphors. "Language is the art of painting with words," she had whispered to herself as she traced each sentence. Now, standing on this quiet street, she saw how far she'd come, not just a speaker of English, but a weaver of narratives, each phrase carefully chosen to resonate. Lost in thought, she almost collided with a figure emerging from the shadows. Jonah Reyes stood beneath a street lamp, his silhouette halved by the light. "Eleanor," he said softly, "congrats on tonight." Her heart skipped. "Jonah, thank you." Her voice was steady, though her pulse raced. He nodded toward the envelope. "That letter, Harrow organized it. It was a test, meant to push you beyond your limits." Eleanor's breath caught. "A test? You mean the note and the microphone?" It was all staged. Jonah's expression was solemn. "Yes, he believes true growth comes under duress. If you falter, you're eliminated. But if you prevail like you did, there's opportunity waiting." A swirl of emotions overcame her, pride in her achievement mingled with a sting of betrayal. "I feel conflicted, but I can't deny it worked." Jonah stepped closer. "Your triumph is real. The adversity merely sharpened you." Eleanor exhaled, steadier now. "Thank you for telling me." I need to decide how to move forward. Jonah offered a small smile. Whatever you choose, I know you'll excel. He slipped away, leaving her alone with the buzzing street. She glanced at Professor Harrow's signature one more time and realized that her success, though manipulated, had revealed reserves of resilience she might never have discovered otherwise. That night, back in her apartment, Eleanor dialed Harrow's number. When his weary voice answered, she spoke with calm precision. "Professor, thank you for your guidance, but I must understand why you felt this test was necessary." Harrow's response was measured. "I saw your potential and wanted to see how you'd perform under pressure." She paused, choosing her words deliberately. "I appreciate your belief in me, but trust is the foundation of mentorship. I hope you'll consider methods that challenge without betraying." After a thoughtful silence, Harrow replied softly, "You've learned well, Eleanor. I'm proud of you." Eleanor felt a deep sense of closure. She saved the call's memory like a precious artifact and turned to her laptop to draft a syllabus for her upcoming masterclass in London. She organized key modules: phonetic precision, rhetorical devices, emotional resonance, each accompanied by practical exercises. She imagined guiding her students to find their own voices, ensuring that no one felt as alone as she had in her early days. Late into the night, Eleanor sat at her desk, sipping jasmine tea as the city lights twinkled beyond her window. She reflected on the journey that had brought her here, from the anxious girl in Mumbai to the confident speaker poised to teach others. In every lesson she had learned about phonemes, intonation, or ethical mentorship, she found a deeper truth: that mastery of language was an endless journey, one enriched by empathy and resilience. She closed her laptop and lay in bed, her mind replaying fragments of her speech, the strategic pauses, the crescendo of emotion, the moments when vulnerability had become her greatest strength. As sleep washed over her, she knew that tomorrow, and the days beyond, would bring new challenges and stories waiting to be told. And she would face them with the voice she had earned. The next morning, Eleanor awoke before dawn, sunlight filtering through the curtains. She practiced a few breathing exercises, feeling the familiar rhythm of her diaphragm expand and contract. Opening her notebook, she scribbled 3 new ideas for her masterclass's opening remark, phrases that would invite curiosity, empathy, and engagement. She rehearsed them aloud, paying attention to stress patterns and cadence. With each repetition, her confidence swelled. Today, she thought, her journey would continue, and with it, her commitment to ensuring that every voice, no matter how tentative, could rise and be heard.